Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Donegan, and welcome to Radical Age Reversal, where we teach you how to age gracefully and have a nice, solid health span. What does that mean? It means that you actually are going to stay young as you chronologically age. Your chronological age is your lifespan, but how healthy you are, how vital you are, and what you can do is dependent on your health span. And we believe here at Radical Age Reversal that your quality of life is 95% related to your lifestyle and 5% related to genetics. Now, there's very little that I can share with you that will help you to overcome your genetic challenges, but I can give you a lot of great research from amazing people that can help you with the best possible lifestyle choices that you can make. And that's why we're all here. So, thank you so much for joining me. We are walking through the book Eat to Beat Your Diet, and I am hoping that you are enjoying this and you are getting great nuggets that that you can start to apply to your life right now. Today we're going to focus on three things: your lungs, your tongue, and COVID-19. Now, you may not think any of these are related, but if you watch previous episodes, you know that we've been talking a lot about body fat, what it does well and what it does to help you, and also when it becomes excessive, what it can do to harm you. Last week, we learned how dangerous visceral fat can be, especially because it's invisible. It's not the squishy kind of fat that you can feel. It is the fat that lays low, kind of lurking in the cavities of your body, especially around your organs. And this can be extremely dangerous. You can be quite thin and actually have too much visceral fat. This leads to what they call skinny diabetes and other health complications. Now, let's talk a little bit about what that visceral fat can do to your breathing capacity and why we all should be a little bit concerned about how much fat surrounds our lungs. So, just in case you have the book with you, I want to draw your attention to page 26, where he starts the chapter Body Fat Affects Your Lungs. So, I think most of us understand it's important for us to breathe. If we weren't breathing, we would die. But the question is, how much oxygen are you getting every day? How well are you able to actually express carbon dioxide, which our lovely plants enjoy, and they give off the oxygen that we breathe, but we want to make sure that we're actually increasing our lung capacity. Sometimes you'll see people in hospitals who are recovering from lung issues. They're given a machine that they breathe into, and a little ball just goes up a tube, and to just see how strong their lung capacity is. You want to make sure that you're not taking breathing for granted. And if you can, wake up in the morning and open up your chest cavity, because that's really going to help with your ability to breathe. And also, take some intentional deep breaths first thing in the morning. Some of us have some really strong health challenges at night, and we're going to talk a little bit about those as we move through these chapters. Sleep apnea, sorry, sleep apathy. Nobody's apathetic about sleep apnea, and of course we have also snoring, which can be a problem for you or your significant other. And so it's important for us to get really, really good at sleeping and good at breathing. So let's talk about that fat, what it can do to impede our perfect breathing conditions, which of course leads to a long health span, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. So he says, in your lifetime, you'll take about 673 million breaths. Now, consider the consequences of having a heavy layer of fat pressing down on your inflatable lungs. Like, so your lungs are these thin bags, right? And as we breathe, your diaphragm goes down, leaves your chest cavity to open up so you can fill up those bags, right? And then as you exhale, that diaphragm will come up and kind of push out, right? Push out that air and express the carbon dioxide. Now, if there's a large mass of fat sitting inside your bellows, or that mechanism, right, that helps you breathe, bulging against your diaphragm, it will make it much harder for your diaphragm to pull in air with each breath. An obese person can have 30% less lung capacity. That average person of normal weight due to excess body fat. So, just if you know that you're obese, one of the things that we want to focus on is your breathing. All right. If you feel like you are skinny fat because you've been diagnosed with diabetes, or you know your numbers and you know that you have high visceral fat, we want to work on your breathing. We're also going to talk a little bit about weight loss and how much weight you have to lose to actually see a significant change. But let's continue about the lung capacity. The less oxygen your brain, heart, or other organs have, the more likely it is for them to malfunction. Remember, visceral fat can be invisible. You might not even realize that it's making it harder for you to breathe. So, what does fat do? It jams up your airways. Um, Now, that air capacity also has to make it into your lungs and out of your lungs, right? So, there's the question of first, I want you to imagine these beautiful, like silk purses, right? Those are your lungs. And then around them, they're being kind of strangled by this padded, gooey fat. We don't want that, right? I'm trying to make this sound undesirable because we don't want that. But we also have a problem because our airways, right, inside our lungs could be clogged up with fat. Just imagine if you were to take um, oil or some kind of, it's like cooking fat, bacon grease, right? And you pour it into your drain. Probably your husband, your father, your significant other is going to say, no, 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 never put oil down the drain. Why? Because it's going to clog up the drain. It can't move the water in and out just the same way. When you have fat inside your lungs, you can't move that air in and out. You're going to clog your lungs. So, this is going to make it even harder for you to breathe, and it's going to cause a lot of inflammation. One of the things that I want you to always keep in mind is that if you have excess fat in your body, you automatically have excess inflammation because that additional fat causes your immune system to send out those signals. Also, the increased leptin is also going to send out those signals. So you're going to be at risk for autoimmune disease, cancers, and other long term chronic illnesses. It's going to impede your capacity for organ function. So your brain is not going to be as sharp, your heart isn't going to be as strong. And as we can see now, your lungs are also not going to be as strong. So, what else can happen? It says the fat can build up in the back of your throat, an area called your pharynx. Now, this is where your airway begins to descend to your lower airways into your lung. When you fall asleep, your throat muscles relax, and that pharynx fat becomes flabby. And that's why you hear people with that deep snoring, that kind of like fluttering sound in the back of their throat. And that strong, loud sound is their body's cry for help, right? It's their body saying, I need oxygen, I can't breathe. And when you're in a prone position, it makes it even harder for your lungs to work. So just imagine now you have this fatty flap in the back of your throat. This is going to cause lots and lots of problems. Now, just as an aside about essential oils, for years, people told me that thyme oil is really, really great for people who have snoring issues. And you can just put it on the bottom of your feet. You could put it on your chest if you wanted to, but thyme has sort of a strong oregano type smell to it, which may not be appealing at nighttime. It's not the most sort of soporific scent, if you will, or luxurious, certainly not a sensual scent. So you may want to keep that for either internal use or to put it on the bottom of your feet. Again, I haven't explored the science exactly behind why thyme oil does such a good job at helping people. But in reading this book, one of the two dots that I'm connecting is this idea that an anti inflammatory is going to be very helpful. So, although thyme oil may not be able to reduce fat, it's not a fat burner, it's more of an anti inflammatory and an anti pathogenic. It's going to kill germs, things like that. It's great if you're going through a cold or a flu. One of the things that I'm connecting here is the fact that it's going to reduce the inflammation. So if your inflammation is reduced, you're going to be able to breathe better. I hope that kind of makes sense. So if you're someone who's been using thyme oil for snoring and it's been successful for you, put that in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you've never tried this trick and you know you snore or someone in your family snores, try to put some thyme oil on the bottom of the feet and see if that helps. Now, let's get back to our flabby airways. It says that this is what leads to that loud snoring. So the fat can completely close, right? So it's not just fluttering, it's going to close shut, which causes the body to kind of panic awake. And in that kind of startled wakedness, we call that sleep apnea, right? And this happens to people throughout the night. They wake up startled, right? It's sort of like because they're strangling themselves. And that would, of course, provoke the body's response to wake up, sit up so you can breathe. But you can see that if you're constantly in a state of momentary strangulation, that's not going to promote a very good night's sleep, which means that all of the good things that happen while you sleep will not be occurring. And you're going to wake up feeling really, really tired, beat up, and old, by the way, because sleep is a powerful youth serum. So, getting a great night's sleep is a goal for all of us. I'm going to give you some tips at the end of the show as to how to really achieve that. Now, 100 million people worldwide have sleep apnea. So, this is a chronic issue. So, I want you to go out and share this information with the people that you know because it's likely that you know someone with sleep apnea. Now, maybe they have headaches, they could have daytime exhaustion, irritability, and learning difficulties. So, if you see any of those telltale signs, you may want to talk to them about their sleep or having their sleep monitored. That could be a good way to find out. Be a detective. Is this one of the issues that you or someone you know might be dealing with? Okay, so those are your lungs, and this is why it's really important that we have to reduce the weight around our lungs. But what about our tongue? This one kind of surprised me. So, your tongue is formed so that 10% of the muscle of your tongue in the front, in the tip, is about 11% fat. But in the back of the tongue, it's actually 30% fat. Now, a normal sized tongue weighs about the same amount as a bar of soap. So, the tongue is actually a considerable organ in your body. It's nothing to laugh about. And it does all kinds of gymnastics, as he likes to say in the book, which I love that description. So let's talk about how fat can on the tongue can negatively impact your health. So the most important thing to understand is that tongue fat is visceral fat. So we do want our tongues to be as lean as possible. How do we do that? He says, uh, the bigger your body mass, the greater amount of tongue fat you have. And they found this out during autopsies. So they took people of normal weight and they weighed their tongues. They took people who were obese and they weighed their tongues. And they saw in every case that the heavier you were, the more tongue fat you had. This also was correlated or related to people with sleep apnea. So tongue fat is definitely an indicator of someone who has sleep apnea, or vice versa. If you have sleep apnea, you probably have too much fat on your tongue. Now, the lack of oxygen that happens when you don't breathe properly leads to high blood pressure, diabetes, liver disease, dangerous rhythm disturbances in the heart, such as atrial fibrillation, and even heart failure. And so, if you have any of those issues and you also need to lose weight, that may be something that you want to understand that those two things are going together. And getting rid of one may mean you can get rid of the other. So, why is this important? Because I think sometimes people think medication is the only solution, and it's not actually. He says on page 29, all doctors know that prescribing weight loss is one of the most effective ways to treat sleep apnea. So, if your doctor is not telling you to lose weight to deal with your sleep apnea, you're missing out on a very, very effective method of getting rid of sleep apnea. Now, remember, even lean people can have sleep apnea. So he said up to 23% of younger, slender people between 18 and 30 were found to have mild sleep apnea in one clinical study. 50% of women had some poor form of sleep apnea. 84% of obese women had the condition. And it says in women over 55, 70% were had sleep apnea, even if they were not overweight. So age, there's some correlation here to age. So stay alert. If you're over 55 and you're female, especially, you want to make sure that you find out how much visceral fat you have. This is really, really important. Remember, the number we're looking for is something under 12. The lower, the better. When I was trying to lose weight, I guess about 3 years ago now, I was so focused on adipose fat, the squishy fat. And I had about 25 pounds to lose, which I did. And when I got on the scale, one of the things that I was really, really happy about was the fact that my visceral fat was a number 3. So, and that stayed pretty consistent. Even when I lost weight and even when I was getting into better shape and building muscle, that visceral fat, I was very grateful that visceral fat level stayed in a healthy level. So even though my adipose levels were too high and I had to lose that other fat, it was the visceral fat that was really going to be the dangerous one. And so if you are overweight or obese and you're really, really like frustrated and nervous, first find out how much visceral fat you have, because you may have, maybe like me, where I had extra weight to lose in terms of the squishy fat, but I didn't really have to worry so much about the visceral fat. And that gave me some peace of mind and directed the way I looked at solving the problem that I was facing. So there's different courses of action depending on which type of fat you really want to target and what you want to lose. So it's important for us to know, again, all doctors know that they can prescribe weight loss for these issues. And that is a key element to getting healthy. Now, speaking of health, let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. We all went through it, we all suffered, we all saw people that suffered at an extreme level, people with long COVID, and we all saw people who didn't get COVID at all. So what happened? So, one of the things that the doctors started to quickly understand, and I'm sure you saw this in the news, was that a major factor of people and how they fared during COVID 19 had to do with their metabolic health or their obesity rates. Their risk of being hospitalized doubled if they were obese. High baseline levels of inflammation caused excess fat raging throughout the body. So, and this made the inflammation even worse. So just remember, when you get sick, inflammation naturally, because of your immune system, will rise, which is a good thing. You want that. You want short-term inflammatory response when you're sick. That's great. Long-term chronic inflammation actually can make every time you get sick even worse. And that's what we're talking about. We're saying that people who had too much excess fat ended up being in a chronic state of inflammation. That chronic state of inflammation made the COVID-19 um, illness more dangerous for them and also harder to overcome, and also something that turned into what they called long COVID, which could last months after the regular course of COVID had passed. So let's talk about that. Hormones, and we talked a little bit about this already. Leptin released by fat cells in the body of the obese also reduced the number of immune B cells that produced antibodies to fight the coronavirus. The decreased lung capacity of obesity also compromised normal breathing, which increased the danger of any virus that infects the lungs. Okay, so we know this was a lung focused virus, and we had to be really, really careful about keeping our lungs healthy. Now, there are lots of essential oils that can make breathing easier. We're going to talk about those in a minute. COVID-19 caused severe damage to tiny blood cells everywhere in the body, a serious problem called endotheliopathy. Our discovery changed the treatment of patients with severe COVID-19 by calling for blood thinners to prevent life-threatening blood clots due to the blood vessel damage. We realized further vascular injury from the corona infection would cause even greater damage to kidneys, heart, brain, and even testicles. Long COVID, which was characterized by persistent blood vessel damage, chronic inflammation, and nerve damage. When there is excess body fat, this can further trigger immune or autoimmune reactions. Now, remember, you can have really bad COVID and be super skinny. That should be a potential red flag that you have too much visceral fat. And you may want to say, well, gosh, if I'm thin anyway, how can I go on a diet? And he's going to tell us about all the foods we should be eating to get rid of that fat, but maintain a healthy weight. So it's not just about dropping pounds, it's about dropping the right fat and getting those ratios in their proper order. So the long-term effects from the infection that lasted more than a month caused excess body fat risk for long COVID as well. All right. So I want to give you some tools to move forward and really focus on your lungs and your tongue. All right. So the first one I want to share with you is called Breathe Blend Essential Oil. Now, if you are someone who wants to strengthen your lungs, if you're someone who wants increased oxygen, if you're someone who's going through some type of illness, if you are someone who has a lot of visceral fat and you're concerned that it's around your lungs, or you have a lot of adipose fat, that squishy fat, and you're concerned that your lungs are wrapped up in sort of um, a fatty comforter, if you will, and not able to expand and contract the way it should, this is a great therapy for you. Now, breathe is wonderful because you can diffuse it. You can actually just put a few drops in your hands, rub them together, and inhale deeply. You're going to feel that menthol right away from peppermint, which is one of the ingredients, and also eucalyptus. It's a very clean scent. Most people that I introduce it to say it's extremely pleasant. They find it enjoyable. We also have it in a lozenge that you can actually suck on and allow that essential oil to kind of invade the inside of your mouth and go through your sinuses that way. But I would do a really nice massage of your chest, literally your throat all the way to the midsection of your chest. Do a good job. Whatever you can do to reach your back, go ahead and do that. And also put the oil back here. If you can't reach your back and you get someone else to rub the oil on your back, that's going to be super helpful too, because your lungs are sandwiched between your chest cavity, and you want to make sure that you get the oil on both sides. Now, the next one I want to introduce you to is MetaPower. You're also going to put this on your chest cavity. Most people think of it as a fat burner, which it is, and that's why we're using it on our chest. If you're concerned about that visceral fat around your chest cavity, or if you have issues at night with breathing, sleep apnea, or snoring, this is going to help to break down those fats. So on the throat, on the chest, on the back, this is a great routine. And yes, you can use MetaPower and Breathe together. The last and most important essential oil that I want to talk about for lung capacity, oxygenation of cells, and breaking down that visceral fat is going to be frankincense. This is an extremely powerful oil, and you will start to feel better if you use this on a consistent basis. So, again, I would say this is going to be a great morning routine. You can do it a couple of ways. You can take the frankincense in your hand. Remember when I said, wake up in the morning, open up your chest cavity, put that frankincense oil right on your chest. Okay, that's going to be great. Inhale it from your hands. Nice deep breaths. It smells really good. You can put it on the back of your neck. It's great to get on your skin. It's going to be so good for your skin. So this is an oil that's almost good for absolutely everything. It also brightens your mood. So if you feel like, oh, it's a gray day outside, or you're going through a really tough time, and even waking up in the morning seems to be like a struggle, having that frankincense as part of your morning routine is going to be critically important. Last but not least, I want to make sure that you are aware of the doTERRA Serenity Stick. This is what I use every night to help me fall asleep. I have a a very strict sleep routine, and because of that, I'm getting some great sleep results. The other thing that I always take are the Serenity capsules. So it puts me into a nice deep sleep, keeps me asleep all night, no issues with snoring, sleep apnea, anything of that nature. So All you have to do is, I'm not going to put this on now because I don't want to be sleepy, but roll it on your chest, roll it under your neck. I also put some under my nose. I really like that. And you can roll it on your feet as well. So, this is something everyone in your household should have their very own serenity stick. And I think it would be great too if everyone in your household had a frankincense routine. So, if you have any questions about what we talked about today, make sure you put those in the comment section. I'd be happy to answer those questions. And I hope you're enjoying this book, and I hope that you are going to start to incorporate some of these routines in your week. Remember, we talked about the lungs, we talked about your tongue, talked about COVID-19. Got three great tools in terms of oils: frankincense, Metapower Blend, and Breathe. And for sleep, we're making sure that we're using our Serenity Stick. So here's to breaking the limits of age and living each day with vitality. Keep thriving, and see you next episode of Radical Age Reversal.